Happy Monday, kiddos. I'm Clinton Yates of the Washington Post, filling in for Bill Press here on the Bill Press Show. I've got Elahe Izadi from National Journal with me, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. There was a big-time football game last night. The Pats managed to come back, beat the Colts as well. Today is the anniversary of John F. Kennedy being laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery. We're going to get into that. Very interesting day if you look back historically on what happened in this city where we are, Washington, D.C., after the tragic events of 50 years ago. We're also going to get into some other things. Healthcare, of course, that's always a big deal for the Obama administration. And of course, there was a deal struck with Iran about the nuclear circumstance. All right, there was a time when people used that word that was actually referring to things that were warheads and so forth, and this is one of those times. So we'll talk about what that means for the country and what that means for us going forward. We got some other stuff to get into. Probably going to talk a little bit about the American Music Awards. That was a fun one. That was last night. Probably going to get into some other news stories. But again, today is kind of the day that you look back and you say, as Americans, 50 years after JFK was shot and killed in Dallas, Texas, what do we think about this nation? What have we done? Where will we go? Are there too many things that we're talking about concerning this family and concerning politics? What was this guy even really like when you look back at it as a president? It's a question we'll get into, something we'll discuss as well. And again, I'm Clinton Yates, The Washington Post. I will be here with Elahe Izadi, who happens to be a stand-up comic as well, so we'll get her take on that. And a gang's all here. So it's Monday, November 25th, 2013. This is the Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show, and again, happy to be here. Bill's not gone, but it's Thanksgiving week, which means I'm happy because it's Turkey Day. See you soon.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your
you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat?
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's me, kiddos. This battleship is operational. Welcome to The Bill Press Show. I am Clinton Yates of The Washington Post, filling in for Bill Press. It is Monday, November 25th, 2013. If you want to give us a call, you can do it at 866-55-PRESS. That is 866-557-7377. You can check us out on Free Speech TV, on DirecTV and the Dish Network, or you can stream us live at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That is TAWKRTV. Sitting directly across from me is one Elahe Izadi of National Journal. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
All right, we're doing good. The rest of the gang is here as well. The man on the boards we call Pito. How are you here?
Hey. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Glad to be here. And of course, if you do call that phone number, one Alicia Cruz will be answering your phone calls. And the reason why you can see me wearing this shirt that I bought at H&M is because Cyprian Bolding is the one handling that on the video operations. So, it's Thanksgiving week. Probably my favorite week of the year. I tend to prefer Thanksgiving to Christmas. A little less stress because there's not really gifts involved. It's a little, I don't know. I mean, there's obviously the issues that people have with the way Americans celebrate that holiday. But nonetheless, if you are working, it's kind of a half work week. Yeah. You're sort of in, you're sort of out. You know, I don't really know what. But we'll be here all week. So.
Best holiday by a mile.
I would say
by
so.
a mile.
I would say so.
I like that it's just the central tenet of it is eating a lot.
Yeah. And family.
Yeah. Oh, there's that too.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Right. I mean,
mostly the food.
Whatever.
You deal with that. So it's a holiday weekend, and holiday week, and we'll be here. But, you know, what were you up to this weekend?
Oh, I went to a Friendsgiving, actually.
Explain what that means to people who don't know.
So, especially in D.C., where a lot of people, their families live in other parts of the country.
Yeah.
Everyone, your friends get together. It was sort of like a potluck. You bring Thanksgiving-type foods. I brought a loaf of bread.
I understand that there are rules for Friendsgiving, though. There's certain
there?
topics that you don't breach because you don't want to get into too many problems, but I don't know.
Really?
Did it get awkward at any point?
No, I just ate their food.
Probably a good idea. Personally, myself, didn't do much this weekend. It was blisteringly cold on the East Coast, so I did not want to leave my house. But one thing I did watch was my man Pharrell came out with a new video for his song Happy. And it's a 24-hour video. The story behind this thing is fascinating. He got together, he made a song for the new Despicable Me sequel, where it's a love song that I guess a lot of people actually think could be potentially nominated for a Grammy. And he did this video where basically, 100 or 50 different people dance on the street with a camera, just walking down the block. And they cast for it. They did a nationwide casting call. But some people, all they did was just walk up to him on the street and say, hey, you look cool. Do you want to be in a Pharrell video? Can you imagine what you would do if you were walking down the street and somebody asked you if you wanted to be in a Pharrell video?
Happens to me weekly.
Yeah.
All the time. I just have that look.
He's beating them off with a bat over there.
Exactly.
I don't know what I would do. I mean, I'd find a way to dance down the street for 5 minutes, but I'd probably look like an idiot. And to be fair, some of these people did look like idiots, but they bought in. They totally committed to the bit.
But they're in a Pharrell video.
I watched probably 4 hours of this because it's a day-long video that's just sort of put together by when it happens during the course of the day. So some are at night, some are in the middle of the morning.
Wait, so it's 24 hours of just video?
Yeah, it's 24 hours of the same song over and over again. Okay. It's pretty interesting, though. It's more interesting than you think.
I kind of have that same reaction.
I don't know if I would want to listen to the same thing for 24 hours.
It was shot in L.A., but it's a pretty fun video. So we got a big show today, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news today. Fortune magazine names its Business Person of the Year, and that honor goes to Elon Musk. Musk, the CEO of Tesla Motors and SpaceX, beat out other business people like Yahoo's Marissa Mayer, Google's Larry Page, and Berkshire Hathaway's Warren Buffett. Fortune declares that Musk is the closest thing that this world has to Steve Jobs since his passing in 2011.
First of all, great name,
Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah.
Total great name.
Can't beat it.
Other thing, though, does anybody in this room know anybody that owns a Tesla? Because I don't.
I do not know.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like they're doing business all over the place, but I don't know one single person that's ever owned one.
They're hard to come by.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But his other great idea is this Hyperloop, this super fast travel tube situation.
That's true, too.
I don't think it's ever going to happen either. But at least the guy dreams big,
Yeah.
So
Gotta love it.
The 397th time is the charm. Chicago's Shermaine Miles was arrested earlier this month, but she swears it's going to be the last time. You can count us as skeptical because this most recent arrest was her 396th arrest in 35 years. The arrests range from disorderly conduct to assault and nearly everything else in between. She was recently released from jail and sent to live in a residential home for ex-cons, but she swears she will not see arrest number 397.
Wow.
Well, if you're already up that high, why not just go to the cool 400? That's what I'd be watching her until 400.
It's a good point. Just keep going until you hit 400.
Yeah, you got to have
and
the
then
even
retire.
record. Totally.
Guinness has to be involved in that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And a big win for Burgundy. If you've watched TV in the last month, you've seen the ads featuring Will Ferrell playing Ron Burgundy selling Dodge Durangos. Those quirky ads that serve to promote the upcoming Anchorman sequel while also selling cars has turned into quite a profitable little venture. Sales of the Dodge Durango have gone up a stunning 59% since those ads started airing.
No way.
This, of course, could open up a whole new era of movie promotion and ad tie-ins.
To be fair, though, it already has. I mean, the promo machine of Anchorman 2 has been a year in the making.
Yeah,
amazing.
Got into the museum.
I've never seen anything like that as far as cross promotion. But I will admit that one where he thinks that there's a woman trapped inside of his car because the nav. That's funny.
They're working. It's almost 60%.
And I thought I would bore of that quickly. I have not.
Yeah, same. There you go.
All right. Well, again, as we mentioned before, today is the 50th anniversary of when John F. Kennedy was laid to rest. Now, there's a couple things about this day that are interesting. You know, everybody's sort of, when you look back on what happened in Dallas and so forth, I'm not going to say what's lost on them is when he was actually laid to rest, but the history of the specific day that it happened is fascinating. Doing research on this, you know, you go back and you look at sort of when he laid in state, what the plans were that were made, all the specific requests that Jacqueline Kennedy had in order of, you know, songs she wanted to be sung, the way they wanted to do the order of things. I mean, it was really, it really was something. And, you know, the funeral was at St. Matthew's Cathedral. He was eventually buried at Arlington Cemetery. A couple of sort of interesting details that I wanted to point out that people tend to forget about. First of all, you know, it sounds obvious now, but the casket was kept closed the entire time for a reason. You know, people, and this was sort of from some early foresight of Jacqueline, she said she didn't want people sort of ghoulishly overly involved with looking at his face as a result of, you know, what had happened, because he obviously had gotten shot in the head. It rained all day that day, which added to the somber mood of what the proceedings were. And, you know, when LBJ was involved in the procession, it was a very big decision for him to decide whether or not he was going to walk or not, because obviously when a guy gets shot in a moving vehicle, if the guy behind him is just sort of walking down the street the next day, there were a lot of concerns about that. And he has said things. I mean, he had said things about it later in life, which was that it was a decision he felt he had to make, because not that he didn't want to look like a coward, but, you know, it was hard for him to sort of decide what to do. Of course, it was also John Jr.'s birthday, which is kind of the worst 3-year-old birthday ever, you know, if you think about it. And like I said, one of the requests that Jackie Kennedy made was she wanted the eternal flame. That was her idea, to put that at Arlington Cemetery. So, you know, a lot of people forget those sort of details. The salute actually happened at the cathedral because it was deemed that the kids were too young to go to the actual funeral. So pardon me, when they interred him. So they were there for the mass, and that was when they were whisked away, and that's when you saw young John make that salute. And people always say that the picture is the most iconic image of that, but I actually think the video is far more touching, because you can see him go out there. He doesn't answer once. He goes out again, and he salutes with the right hand, and as he turns and looks, he wipes away a tear with his left hand, or presumably wipes something from his face. I'm going to presume that's a tear because, you know, at that age, I can't imagine what was going through his head, but it's a very poignant piece of video. And I don't know, I can't imagine a situation in which that happens again today. I mean, nearly 1 million people lined up to watch this happen, to take the president's body from the Capitol to Arlington Cemetery. And when you watch old video footage, Elahe, it's shocking because it's silent. the only thing you hear is the actual procession. And it's very bizarre. I don't know what you thought about it, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting now because thinking about whether something like that could happen today in terms of everyone coming together and being present with each other physically and mourning alongside each other. And it seems like now, people lament about the loss of the public square and how technology has kind of created new spaces for us, but has also created silos. So I was just thinking, like, if there was this big tragedy, where would we all come together to mourn? And I think it'd be Twitter and Facebook, and those would be places, and it wouldn't be silent.
Right.
So it's really, I think there's a contrast there. I think that we now have this need to kind of talk it all out. But yeah, the fact that thinking about 1 million people just standing in silence, that's incredible.
It really is. And, I guess just looking back on this as somebody that, again, nobody in this room was alive when that happened.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to look back on it from a historical standpoint. But, again, you understand that this weekend was full of remembrance for a reason. But there's so much density to the story of the Kennedys. There have been a good 10, there have been at least a dozen films made about just this weekend alone 50 years ago. And, you've seen slightly ghoulish things, in my opinion, on television and on Twitter, such as, I believe it was the History Channel, who were live tweeting the events of the day in some sort of bizarre recreation mode that I thought was very... I mean, again, I thought was a little strange, but there's 2 movies that have come out just this year alone about the Kennedys. And I bring this up because I want to ask you guys out there, if you want to give us a call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Is this country too obsessed with the Kennedys? Have we reached the point where 50 years later, it is maybe time to start thinking about whether or not the aura of that family, be it politically, be it socially, be it, I don't even know what else, has become too much of a concern in this nation. Hank Stover wrote something, my colleague at the Washington Post, basically saying that the 60s would not be the 60s unless this had actually happened. And he wonders where America would have gone in a different sense. And it's an interesting question. Like I said, give us a call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Is America too obsessed with the Kennedys? That is the question. Again, I'm Clinton Yates. I'm here with Elahe Izadi of National Journal. This is the Bill Press Show. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to The Bill Press Show. I am Clinton Yates of The Washington Post. Sitting in with me is Elahe Izadi of National Journal.
Hello.
And we are talking about JFK 50 years later. Today was the day that he was actually laid to rest, but Pito brought something up during the break that is actually a very interesting point that I had forgotten to mention earlier, which is that today's also the day that Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who the Warren Commission decided was the sole actor, if you will, in the president's death, was put in the ground. But there's an interesting factoid about that, Pete.
I didn't realize that when the reporters showed up to go and cover the funeral of Lee Harvey Oswald, the only people that showed up were his brother, his mother, his wife, and his very young kids.
Right.
That's it. And so one of the reporters looked at another reporter and said, you know what, we're here to cover the funeral of Lee Harvey Oswald, but there's not going to be a funeral unless we carry his casket. And the reporters who were there to cover his funeral actually served as pallbearers.
Let's think about that for a while, though.
I mean,
you've been to a lot of sort of strange pressers and weird things.
I've been to some funerals, too, as a reporter.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
How would you react to that?
I don't know. At first, I was thinking I would not do it. But then we were discussing that this would be like the ultimate story.
Yeah.
That Peter was saying you could drink on this for a decade.
Yeah,
right.
Totally. I mean, easy.
I think you would have to do it. I mean, I mean, for no other not for no other reason, but I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, there's a manpower situation required to get somebody in the ground. First of all, on a basic, participation grade type of thing, but. I mean, that must have been the most bizarre feeling in the world for those people. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I showed up to a funeral and there was nobody to put the body in the ground, on a certain level, I don't care who it is. I feel like there's a human element of you that's going to participate in that. But then again, from a story standpoint, that's the greatest column ever.
Yeah. And also being a reporter, though, if you're there to cover it, how much a part of this story are you going to allow yourself to become?
Yeah. No, that's a good question.
That would be my hesitation.
Right.
Like, I'm here to witness this. I'm not here to participate in it.
Yeah, but that's as good as it gets for gonzo journalism.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Totally.
Being able to, put somebody in the ground like that. That's really weird. But
so you do it.
I would do it, yeah. I mean, I'd probably think about it for a while, but I can't imagine a situation where I would just watch a bunch of other people do that and then just say no. But
not jumping.
Anyway, there's a couple things that I wanted to get to. Again, if you want to give us a call and talk to us about it, it's 866-55-PRESS, 866-55-77377.
I'd be curious, by the way, to know if anybody that would call in 866-55-PRESS, if they wouldn't carry that and serve as pallbearer, and why they wouldn't.
Yeah, that's another question. We got a tweet here. A guy named G.F. Jacobs says, yes, the mainstream media are obsessed, have determined that we must be so as well. Single story mania obscures news and issues. I think that's a little bit off base because not single story here. That's kind of what the whole point of the tragedy was, is that there were so many different storylines that it became a forget a cottage industry, it's become a big time industry of not just conspiracy theorists, if you want to use that word, but just historians,
Yeah.
Anyway, but so there's a couple stories that about this that I wanted to quote from that are in fact quite interesting. And one of them was John Semley from Esquire. His piece, Texas is the Reason, the JFK assassination inaugurated an era of nihilism, and paranoia in pop culture that endures 50 years later. Now, this point to me is fascinating. He writes, but American culture's enduring fascination with the Kennedy assassination and the general presumed sense that it was animated by a conspiracy of some kind have helped develop a kind of wary civic diligence. In the fallout of revelations about the National Security Agency, drone wars abroad, and wiretaps on Angela Merkel's cell phone, it seems naive to not believe in the existence of history-manipulating government conspiracies. The continued fascination with the death of Kennedy represents all of this mistrust, confusion, and obsession in what it feels like is a manageable microcosm. I think that's a fascinating notion that at this day and age, people still have a healthy skepticism of the government that they might not have had at that time that they, on a certain level, probably should have.
Yeah, and it kind of marked that turning point in a way that kind of skepticism kind of sprouted out then and then just persisted throughout. And then another bookend would be Watergate, for sure. That was the other moment in American history where the distrust of American institutions and the official narratives that were being given out kind of grew out of that as well.
Yeah, and that's become sort of the existence of a lot of people's sort of entire political philosophies on a certain level, which is that of mistrust. So anyway, we'll talk more about this later in the show, but again, it's just such an interesting day in history, the day he was actually laid to rest. If you get a chance to go look at that, check it out, because it's just, I don't know, to me, it's fascinating. Again, I'm Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist at the Washington Post. Elahe Izadi is here. She's a stand-up comic and also a staff correspondent at National Journal. We're going to talk more about this later in the show, but again, this is the Bill Press Show. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Happy Monday, kiddos. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill Press. Sitting right across from me is one Elahe Izadi.
Hello.
And we are talking about JFK 50 years later. Is America too obsessed with that family? Got a tweet from @RodeoGal who says, I remember both the JFK and the Reagan funerals. Collective heartbreak for JFK was real, but Reagan was back and forth across the U.S. and slightly contrived. Interesting question. If you want to give us a call, or interesting point. If you want to give us a call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Let's go to Bob in Carlinville, Illinois.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fine.
So, your thoughts?
Yeah, my comment was that it was just the beginning of a series of events, the Kennedy assassination. I'm 65 years old.
Okay.
So, it was just a series. Then we went into Vietnam. We had the King assassination, the Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, and the ongoing Vietnam deal and it just changed our country completely. And you've heard it said that unless you're there, you can't understand it. And I think that's part of it. You know, my age group, we were there, and we just can't get away from it. Exactly.
Does it surprise you, Bob, at this point that this is still so much a part of our collective identity?
No, not at all.
Really?
Because there's enough of us the age that still remember that we're there, and we keep it alive, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But
right.
It's just it was just so bizarre, and I've sat here all weekend thinking, well, okay, at this point I was coming home from church and I heard that Oswald had been killed, and blah blah blah. So the whole entire event, we just relived it this weekend.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate that. And he brought something up that I think we want to pivot to, which is a column that Kathleen Parker from the Washington Post wrote, which I found interesting for a couple of reasons, but let me read from it some. She wrote, when Kennedy died, we lost our symbolic father, and our grief was for ourselves as well as the Kennedys. We observed and absorbed Jacqueline Kennedy's grace and dignity. We felt her children's loss as our own. Not only had we lost the leader of our nation, but also our idealized notion of the American family was shattered. Oswald and the president were buried the same day, though members of the press showed up, and she goes on to talk about the story that we talked about earlier. Now, the point she brings up there is looking at the Kennedys as the American sort of, the microcosm of what America was. But somebody asked me on a different program the other day to talk about how I felt about the Kennedy assassination through the eyes of my parents. Sort of like the way I had talked. I'd written a column about this based on the March on Washington and so forth. And it hadn't really occurred to me that I haven't talked with my parents 1 second in my life, really, about the JFK assassination, And I mean, I'm 32 years old. My parents were around when this happened, and it's just interesting how in certain parts of America, it's not to say that it didn't affect everybody, but in certain parts of America, this was not necessarily the life-changing event, I think, to the point where you had to discuss it with your kids even years later. What was your experience like?
Yeah, I mean, same with you, Clinton. I don't think I've ever spoken about this with my family. But my parents weren't here when that happened, so it didn't impact them the way that it maybe impacted someone who had been here.
Right.
But yeah, just this idea that it was almost like losing your own father. She kind of describes it that way. And I would imagine for many Americans it felt that way. But to say that is how America felt, full stop, there are probably plenty of Americans who did not feel necessarily that way, that this was their father who passed on. You didn't identify. This wasn't your family in the same sense.
Right.
As like a white American,
Basically, I mean, and that's really what it comes down to. I think for a lot of America then, the only sort of social narrative, I think, was what white America did in terms of, views of sort of positive outlooks on this country. And I think that sort of changed drastically after this, after the assassination. But to answer the question myself, I do think this country is a little bit over obsessed with the Kennedy situation. He, as a national icon, was a guy that will, I don't think, ever be recreated, or not recreated, but replaced. But I think that there is I don't want to say disturbing, but the way that people talk about that family and the way that people discuss what went on when they were sort of in power, it almost makes you feel like they don't want that to happen again, because you don't want to have to replace that image of the icons that were there. And to me, that's a little bit problematic. We got another phone call here. We're going to go to Stefan in St. Louis.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Pretty good. I'm 26 years old, and I'm now not completely versed on everything, but just knowing the fact that no one actually shows up for a funeral like this, good or bad, just wants me to think that if I was there at the time, I would definitely be one of the pillars and carry that casket.
You're talking about Oswald's funeral?
Yeah.
Well, here's my question, though. In that scenario, why would you be there at all? I mean, that was the thing. These guys were there for work, effectively, and got put into a weird spot. But, if something like that happened today, do you think you'd find yourself going to the funeral of a guy who's a presumed killer?
Like I said, good or bad, I mean, it's just the story and the historic fact that you were there present at the time would be significant, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Let me ask you this one more, too, Stefan. Do you think this country is too obsessed with the Kennedys?
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. That's an honest answer. But like I said, if you hold one family so high that basically nobody else can live up to that standard, even if they do eventually become something more for the country, I think that's a too limiting way to look at things. And it's hard. It's hard to get people out of sort of like I said, the notion of nostalgia. But I don't know. I think there's a certain point where I'm not saying that you take it off. I'm not saying you bury it, but to use I guess that's a pretty poor metaphor. But you might take it off the shelf. You might take it off the mantle and you put it in the attic versus on display all the time.
And I think because this is a family that on the one hand you can look at them as this quote unquote perfect family, but there's so much tragedy around it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes them so compelling for Americans, is just how tragic this family and their stories have been.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason it persists.
No, I entirely agree. And another thing I just want to point to that's an interesting list to look at is a list from the Washington Times, where they do a top 10 of the best films made about JFK. And I think it's fascinating myself, but the number one is obviously the Zapruder film. And when you think about the details of that, I mean, the fact that the government paid literally $16 million to make sure that thing stayed in the National Archives, it's understandable why people have sort of somewhat strange conspiracy theories. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money.
Is that adjusted for inflation?
I do not know, but that's a lot of money for a clip that's less than 30 seconds. It's some 400 odd frames. I mean, it's wild. Anyway, but That's that. I just, the Kennedys are one of those American families that really define who we were and are as a nation. But if we can never move past what they accomplished, I don't think that we're ever really going to be able to see what we can realize going forward. And that's, to me, is not really the way you want to go about it. But I'm Clinton Yates. You can follow me on Twitter at Clinton Yates. Elahe Izadi is here with me, too. You can follow her on Twitter at
Elahe Izadi.
Look how that works out. So anyway, we'll be right back. It's Monday, November 25th. This is The Bill Press Show.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
In 1920s America, the Great Depression effectively erased consumer demand. Struggling manufacturers needed new ways to get people buying again. Innovative production processes like stamping and use of molds allowed them to use new materials for their designs. Products using vinyl, chrome, aluminium and plywood began appearing. American industrial designers began introducing streamlined, efficient shapes that shouted progress. Bel Geddes pioneered what we now refer to as utilitarian art. Things that had little reason to look sleek now all of a sudden did. At the 1939 World Fair featuring Bel Geddes' immensely popular Futurama exhibit, a new era of American industrial design proudly claimed to be building the world of tomorrow. Americans found great positivity in these futuristic forms. Yay. Things were looking up. American industrial designers realised that by making objects look great, people simply wanted them more. From cars to kitchen appliances, the most influential society on earth was spending money again. Mass consumption had arrived. Advertisers finally had lots to talk about. Personal taste could be expressed through the things you bought. Style became equally as important as function. Chair designers like Eames and Saarinen didn't just design seating, they created desirable lifestyles. People behind the products suddenly were stars. Everyone wanted to know who they were. Raymond Loewy was one of the shining lights of American industrial design. His face ended up on every coffee table in the nation. Toothpaste packaging promised whiter teeth. Washing powder packaging promised whiter whites. Who knew such simple household objects would shape the tastes and ambitions of an entire society? American industrial design improved America, functionally, culturally and intellectually, and exported it around the globe.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to The Bill Press Show. I am Clinton Yates of the Washington Post, filling in for Bill, who is on vacay. Elahe Izadi is here with me.
How are you?
I'm well, and yeah, that's the deal. It's Monday. It's Thanksgiving week, so, the cat's away. I guess are we mice?
I think so in this metaphor.
Hey, you're both cats in my book, okay. Guys?
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you very much. But want to talk about something a little different right now, and for all the things we've been hearing about Iran, there's another word. I mean, that word nuclear has been thrown around for something else, something that's been happening on Capitol Hill quite a bit. And there was a vote on Thursday in the Senate to eliminate the ability of the Senate minority to filibuster executive branch nominees and any judgeship below the Supreme Court by changing the requirements for passage to a simple majority vote. Now, I know a fair amount of things. I follow a fair amount of stuff. but I effectively have no real idea of what that means. All right.
Like any of it.
So, Elahe, please explain to me and to America why this is important, what this means, and we'll go from there.
All right. So in the Senate, when you want to confirm an executive nomination, so we're talking about people to fill posts in the administration and also people to serve on federal courts.
Right.
So one of the courts, there's a court that's just right below the Supreme Court. It's a district circuit court. And that's the one that kind of like spurred all this. So anyway, if you want to confirm one of the president's nominees, you need a filibuster-proof majority. You need 60 people to vote for this person to confirm. So what's been happening is that the Republicans have not been allowing some of the circuit court nominees to go through, not because they object to the actual people, but because they don't want President Obama to fill the courts with his picks. So
hating, as it's known.
Well, and to be fair, this is not something that only Republicans have done.
Right.
In 2005, we have a bit of a role reversal, and they managed to strike a deal to allow some of Bush's nominees to go through. And so this whole nuclear option thing, what that means is changing the rules. So you don't need 60 people, you just need 51. And when Democrats can count on 55 votes, they just need 51 to confirm someone. That means that President Obama gets to have his picks.
Gotcha.
So what happened was Reid basically was like, enough is enough. Harry Reid was like, enough is enough. We're going to change the rules. And that's why it's called the nuclear option.
Gotcha. Because it effectively blows everything up.
It blows it up.
We've got audio on that. The president talked about it, I believe, last week.
Vote today, I think, is an indication that a majority of senators believe, as I believe, that enough is enough. The American people's business is far too important to keep falling prey day after day to Washington politics.
So what he's saying there basically is, because you guys are not playing by the rules, or are playing by the rules, but in a way that is, in his opinion, sort of, specious logic, I'm changing the rules. I mean, is that effectively on some level how this is operating?
Yeah, and I mean, I think part of it, the fear is that now that the Democrats have done this, when and if the Republicans take the Senate and the White House, that they are then going to change the rules, not just for this, but also to include Supreme Court nominees. Because right now, this does not include Supreme Court nominees. So if Republicans are then in power, can they then confirm a nominee to the highest court of the land with just 51 people?
Gotcha. We also have Mitch McConnell had something to say about what Obama said.
It reminds them of all the broken promises. It reminds them of the power grab. It reminds them of the way Democrats set up one set of rules for themselves and another for everybody else.
Clearly, he's referring to the American people in terms of them there. But, what do you think about that?
Well, I will say that this is a pretty major shift in what it will do for the Obama administration and the White House. Because right now, Obama's having a really tough time having any of his agenda enacted through Congress. Because even though Democrats control the Senate, they have the filibuster, and then Republicans control the House. So what's Obama going to try and do is try and enact his agenda through regulation and regulatory reform. And so now he can get his team and the people he wants in those posts through this change. So you should expect to see some new regulations and things being enacted when it comes to the environment and other agencies.
Do you think that there are people that would have been nominated had these been the old rules? Are there nominations in past you think might have been different than say they are now?
Perhaps. I mean, the thing with the court is the nominees weren't really the problem. Now, Republicans, they took issue with another nominee, Mel Watt, who is a congressman and was nominated to head up the FHA. And the Republicans did take issue with him because they said this is a political nominee.
Right.
This isn't like a wonk.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, that's a good question.
Yeah. I do my best there. Again, you're listening to The Bill Press Show. I'm Clinton Yates of The Washington Post. Elahe Izadi of National Journal is here. It's Monday. It's Thanksgiving week. We'll be right back.
This is The Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
In the early 20th century, the war to end all wars didn't end war at all. It stoked the fires of change. A traumatized world was ripe for change. The world was ready for modernism. Modernists wanted to forget history, or at least reinterpret it. More than just a style, modernism applied to virtually all forms of creative expression. Innovative artists like Picasso, Escher, Dali, they all started looking at their world differently. Other artists tried painting light itself. These were the Impressionists. Surrealists went a bit further. We had entered the age of the isms. Cubism, symbolism, futurism, constructivism. All these new modern ways of looking at the world blew people away. When it came to architecture, modernists were intrigued by emerging technology. Concrete, glass and steel featured heavily in their buildings. Modernists believed that they could design a better society. Ornamental indulgence was considered a frivolous waste of effort. They thought function should always dictate form, and that mankind's intelligence, creativity and capability for radical thinking should be celebrated. Take the Russian inventor Georgy Krutikov. He suggested an idea for a city held aloft by electrical currents. This at a time when there was barely enough wattage to keep the lights on. Not everything they designed was a resounding success. But you could argue modernism was the single most influential movement of the 20th century. From house music to housewares, tables and chairs to graphic design, all have been created by the aesthetics and ideas of modernism.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, welcome back to the program. I am Clinton Yates of the Washington Post. I'm here with Elahe Izadi.
Hello.
And we're going to the phones. If you want to give us a call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Joey in Chi-Town. What's going on, Joey?
Hey, good morning.
How you doing?
I'm a little worried about everyone saying, what will the Republicans do when they get power? If everyone's not paying attention, they're sticking to it to us right now. And as soon as they would have gotten in power, they would have changed this rule. I guarantee it, because they're not playing nice anymore. So I don't want to hear what they're going to do to us. They're doing it to us right now, everybody.
Thank you, Joey. All right. Fair enough.
Well, that's the same argument that Senate Democrats have been making, and even those who were reluctant to go along with this, they're like, look, there's nothing that's happening right now. We are forced into this situation.
Right.
So that's the same calculation they've made.
All right. Going back to the phones. Amin in Akron, Ohio.
Yes, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
I'm calling about the nuclear option. It seems like every bill Obama tried to get passed, the Republicans would deny it, and then they complain about he's not doing nothing. I think that's like a double standard. Then when they passed it, they try to criticize them for, for what they did.
Yeah, and to that point, this change just has to do with nominations, and now there's talk of will they go even further, or will Republicans, when they're in power, go further to make this change for not just nominations but bills and legislation? Because you can still filibuster and stop like a bill.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you very much. Peter, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a question I had because we've covered this for a while, and we talk about this filibuster reform an awful lot. We've had Senator Jeff Merkley in here to talk about it. And there's been a vibe from our callers and from Bill when he's here that Harry Reid was never doing enough on the filibuster front, and then he was sort of backing down and didn't take charge of that situation. So my real thing is what happened? Because he manned up and for progressives and made this happen. I don't know what changed.
Yeah,
what was it?
I think they've actually been in talks for a long time, and I think once they had the votes to go ahead and do it, that's when he pulled the trigger and he went for it. And I think the breaking point was Mel Watt plus Patricia Millett. Patricia Millett is the person who was nominated to the circuit court. When those nominees were being blocked, it was like, okay, what option do we have left? Because she was not being blocked on the basis of who she was.
Right. Which is a problem.
Yeah, so it was there was no one else that Obama could have picked to put on that court unless the person was overtly conservative.
Right. Do you think this changes anything as far as the next election cycle?
I mean, I think Republicans are definitely going to try and use it, but even some Republicans are skeptical as to how effective it would be. John McCain said to us last week that most Americans don't really understand what this is, and I think how Republicans...
Me being one of those Americans that doesn't understand
I mean, it's Senate rules. It's fine, but I think how they will try and use it is playing up the fact that now that this is... The filibuster on nominees has gone away. I think Republicans and conservatives will try and message saying, look, Obama can now pack courts with people who are for abortion rights, and they're going to try and play up some of these issues and kind of play into the narrative they're trying to create that the White House is overreaching. I don't know how effective that's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, as
Senate rules.
As the type of typical American that sort of understands this stuff, but is not exactly... This is not exactly a hot button issue.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's just because I'm obtuse, but I try to prefer to think that I'm not.
No,
but
I think I think most people don't really get it and don't understand how it could affect their everyday lives.
Right. Well, it could. Anyway,
Yeah.
She's Elahe Izadi of National Journal, also a stand-up comedian, something we'll talk about more later. I'm Clinton Yates of The Washington Post. This is The Bill Press Show. Today is Monday, November 25th, which means it's Thanksgiving week. Talk to your family. They don't want to talk to you, but you don't want to talk to them. I'm just kidding. Call us up. Talk to us. It's The Bill Press Show. We'll be back.
This is The Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Happy Monday, kiddos. I'm Clinton Yates of The Washington Post, filling in for Bill Press here on The Bill Press Show. I've got Elahe Izadi from National Journal with me, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. There was a big-time football game last night. The Pats managed to come back, beat the Colts as well. Today is the anniversary of John F. Kennedy being laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery. We're going to get into that. Very interesting day if you look back historically on what happened in this city where we are, Washington, D.C., after the tragic events of 50 years ago. We're also going to get into some other things. Healthcare, of course, that's always a big deal for the Obama administration. And of course, there was a deal struck with Iran about the nuclear circumstance. All right, there was a time when people used that word that was actually referring to things that were warheads and so forth, and this is one of those times. So we'll talk about what that means for the country and what that means for us going forward. We got some other stuff to get into. Probably going to talk a little bit about the American Music Awards. That was a fun one. That was last night. Probably going to get into some other news stories. But again, today is kind of the day that you look back and you say, as Americans, 50 years after JFK was shot and killed in Dallas, Texas, what do we think about this nation? What have we done? Where will we go? Are there too many things that we're talking about concerning this family and concerning politics? What was this guy even really like when you look back at it as a president? It's a question we'll get into, something we'll discuss as well. And again, I'm Clinton Yates, The Washington Post. I will be here with Elahe Izadi, who happens to be a stand-up comic as well, so we'll get her take on that. And the gang's all here. So it's Monday, November 25th, 2013. This is the Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show. And again, happy to be here. Bill's not gone, but it's Thanksgiving week, which means I'm happy because it's Turkey Day. See you soon.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Happy Monday, folks. You are listening to The Bill Press Show. Thank you for tuning in. I am Clinton Yates of the Washington Post, here with Elahe Izadi of Nat Journal.
Hey.
We are streaming live at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV. We're also seen on Free Speech TV, on DirecTV, and Dish Nation. If you want to give us a phone call, 866-55-PRESS. That's 866-557-7377. To paraphrase an old Beastie Boys line, at the boards is the man they call Peter O.
Hey.
And, of course, screening those phone calls is Alicia Cruz, and making us all look like we know what we're doing is Cyprian Bolding on the video operations. We're talking about the filibuster situation on Capitol Hill. Elahe, you want to give a quick rundown of what that is again?
Well, basically, last week the Senate changed its rules so that in order to confirm President Obama President Obama's nominees for an executive or judicial branch, they no longer need 60 senators to vote. They just need 51.
All right. Sean in Oakland, California. What's going on, Sean?
Hey, how you doing, man? I just
good.
want to say, they're a little late with the filibuster. They should have did it in his first term, but I'll accept it now. But it's time for the donkey to turn around and start kicking the elephant in the you-know-what.
All right. Thank you very much, Sean. 866-55-PRESS, 866-55-PRESS. Camilla in A-Town. How's it going, Camilla?
Hi. I just wanted to point out that we need to talk in simple terms so people understand. They have filibustered. It took 500-plus days for one person to get an up or down vote. That is not normal. The quorum has already left the Senate. This is why they had to do what they do. They took the lawyer 500-plus days to get an up or down vote, and then they voted in favor 99-0. What was the issue? This is a problem. And they had to do it. There has to be a change.
So you think that
ideas. I'm sorry?
You think that basically some of the behavior in the Senate was a little bit disingenuous, meaning that if you're going to take that long to filibuster.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the quorum has already left. They filibustered Chuck Hagel, their own Republican senator. They filibustered him for no other reason than the fact that the president selected Chuck Hagel.
Right.
That is an issue. We need to understand, and progressive radios need to say this.
All right. Thank you very much, Camilla. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I mean, her point is very well taken. And if you just look at the number of nominees who have been filibustered, I mean, it depends on how you kind of count or calibrate filibuster, but it has been a shockingly high number during President Obama's term. So if you just look in the 112th, 7 executive nominees were blocked and 26 judicial. And I mean, it's almost like half of the people who have been filibustered have been during his presidency on judicial.
So let me ask you this, though, from a legislative standpoint, though, if that's what they're there to do, and if that's within the sort of rules of how things are allowed to run, why is it a problem other than the theoretical notion that it seems disingenuous? Is this legitimately wasting a lot of time or money in this process?
What do you mean, changing the rules?
Like filibustering?
Filibustering.
How does that really impact how people are able to legislate other than just basically annoying the hell out of everybody?
It basically prevents President Obama from having his team.
Yeah.
When it comes to executive appointments. And then judicial's another story because a lot of those are lifetime appointments. And I think that's why you've seen more more of those appointments being blocked. But yeah, if you're not allowing the president to fill agencies, he can't enact his platform. He can't enact his agenda.
Right.
So that's why it was so important.
Okay. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Let us go to Carol in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
They've been holding up the guy who is the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms
ATF,
the one that would be in charge of that. He is part-time right now because they changed it from a cabinet position that the president could just take in and put whoever they wanted on there, to that the Senate has to confirm him. So you don't have people that the president needs to have. You still have Bush appointees in those positions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's wrong, because Bush has been gone for 5 years. He already messed up the country.
Thank you very much, Carol. Appreciate the phone call. Let us go to Rob in Chicago. How you doing this morning, Rob?
Good morning. I think as a person that kind of is, I call myself moderate, that this is a really bad idea. I mean, we have the Republicans who could come into power in 4 years or less and could appoint all sorts of ultra-corporatist kind of people. So, I mean, I think this was more of a power grab than the Democrats, and we as American citizens should really howl about this.
Expand on that, though, for me, Rob. So you're saying you think this is a short-sighted move?
Yes, because it's definitely something where I view the Obama administration saying we want our legacy and we're going to get it no matter how, even if we have to basically corrupt the process. I don't like filibusters, but I don't like one-party rule either. And if you stuff the courts full of, I mean, let's face it, if the right wing gets into power, we'll have nothing but ultra right wing appointees for life on the courts. And if the left has their way, we'll have wackadoodles on the left doing their thing. So it's something we should be very cautious of. I have already written to my senators. I've already written to the White House saying this was totally wrong. It shouldn't have been done, and it looks like a power grab to me.
All right. Thank you very much, Rob. Listening to the Bill Press Show here. I'm Clinton Yates here with Elahe Izadi. We're talking about the new filibuster situation in the Senate. If you want to give us a phone call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-577-3777. Will, in Los Angeles, California. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. Hey, I think what is unprecedented is the number of filibusters that have happened in the first place. I mean, this wasn't news until the Democrats did what they did. But we should have been talking about this a long time ago. I mean, it was unprecedented, the number of filibusters that the Republicans have been doing since he's been in office. It's absolutely ridiculous. And now we want to talk about it? Why are we now talking about this? You know, no president has ever had to deal with the number of filibusters he has. So, like, now he wants to do his job. So now why are we talking about it? You know, it's like we should have been talking about the number of filibusters he's had to deal with in the first place.
So you think this is a little too late for your taste?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not saying it's too late. I'm just saying it's too late for us, or the people in the media. Why are you guys now all of a sudden want to talk about this? Nobody was bringing up the number of filibusters and the nutbags that are like filibustering everything. So, and talking about the Republicans in power, they're in power now.
All right. Thank you, Will. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we were talking about it in a more micro level each time one of these nominees was being blocked. It's worth pointing out that over the summer, Harry Reid threatened to go, quote unquote, nuclear and change the rules then when they blocked some other executive appointments, some nominees then. And a deal was that they struck a deal to allow those nominees to go through. But that deal was not dealing with judicial nominees. So it almost came to a head over the summer.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Bonnie in Chesterfield, Michigan. How are you?
I am great, guys. How's everybody?
Doing good.
I'm having the time of my life listening to your guest. I'm sorry, I forgot her name.
Thank you. Elahe is her name.
I've been on the phone, and I didn't want to have my TV sound on the same time.
Oh, appreciate it.
Smart caller.
About the filibusters. We have the legislative with the military branches, and then we have the most powerful man on the face of the earth, so I hear everybody say everywhere, the executive branch. Now, the office of President of the United States may be the most powerful, but it's the man that's in there now is not, and I am so angry. Why? I mean, could you explain what his powers are? Why? I think that the president, our beloved President Obama, should be able to choose his own staff. Why are the House of Representatives and the Senate? Why do they have to have a vote on any president's staff?
All right. Thank you very much, Bonnie. That's a reasonable question.
Well, yeah, and I mean, what we're talking about now are executive appointments and judicial appointments. And judicial appointments aren't just during Obama's presidency. Right. Those are people who are going to be on that court well after he's gone. I mean, to her point, one of the things that Democrats will often point out on the Hill are comments that Mitch McConnell made when Obama was being sworn in during his first term, that the number one agenda of Republicans will be to block President Obama's agenda, which they have effectively done on the Hill. So how is he going to do it? He's going to do it through regulation and through his executive branch.
Right,
so this
the point
is
you made earlier.
Yeah, so this is the way he's going to try and have some power, basically.
Strategery. All right, we got Ken in San Rafael, California.
Hi, good morning. I think this whole thing isn't framed properly. The Constitution requires 51 votes to pass anything. The whole idea of the filibuster was a late idea. It is not written into the Constitution. We should throw it in their face who say, oh, we're just constitutionalists. We want to stay by the Constitution. This is what the intended, our forefathers intended. So throw it in their face. What is this business of power grab? That's ridiculous.
All right, Ken, I've heard that is one thing about this I actually have heard echoed other places, but that when the Constitution was, drawn up, nobody could have imagined that filibusters would be a reasonable method of trying to get anything solved or blocked. And so, I don't know. I mean, I've that is one thing, even as somebody that does not know a lot about this, that I have heard before. But anyway, I want to say thanks to everybody for calling. Again, you're listening to The Bill Press Show. I'm Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist at The Washington Post. Elahe Izadi is a correspondent at National Journal. We will be right back because this is The Bill Press Show, and it is Monday, November 25th.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges?
How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
Enough.
Enough. Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
And I am Clinton Yates of The Washington Post, filling in for Bill today. Elahe Izadi of National Journal is with me.
Hello.
And we are talking about these new filibuster rules from, that have been put into place or were last week. And, 866-55-PRESS is the number if you want to talk to us about it. 866-55-77377. Let us go to Rose, excuse me. I need glasses. Rose in Ligonier, Indiana. How are you, Rose?
Hi, morning, Clinton.
Good morning.
We are missing the big picture here. When we elect a Republican, they appoint judges to the court for lifetime. The Democrats, they appoint for the lifetime. That's what keeps the courts moderate. The courts are what sets all the laws, particularly the federal, in this country and which way the country is leaning. So if we want at least a moderate, we can't stack it one way or it will go clean askew to the right or clean askew to the left. That's how we trot at least a sensible middle ground path. And that's why the Republicans are doing this. They do want the courts. Even if they don't have the elections, they still control the country through the courts.
That's an interesting outlook on that. Thank you very much, Rose. Appreciate it. We are now going to... We're now going to go to Donald in Aurora, Illinois. Hello, Donald.
Yeah, hi, how you doing?
I'm good.
The one gentleman that called up saying that he was against the filibuster, that it was wrong. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know where this guy has been, but when Harvey tried to compromise with them last time, they more or less kind of like made promises that they wouldn't abuse it, and they went right back to abusing it. And one thing he doesn't seem to understand: if the shoe was on the other foot, I honestly believe the Republicans would be doing exactly what the Democrats are doing. And not only that, the Republicans are using the filibuster, the fact that they turned it down, as a threat. One of the congressmen, I don't know who he was, you may remember it, made references to Justice Scalia being elected for that reason. He says, if you think if you let this go, you can end up having another Justice Scalia on there. And as far as I'm concerned, the court system, Supreme Court especially, should be elected by the people and get rid of these people that this lifetime commitment where they're going to work until they hit the gravesite's got to stop. I mean, this absolute power corrupts absolutely, and let's just get rid of all of that. Let's term limits and everything.
Hold on. Expand on that for me, Donald. You're saying that you have a basic problem with the notion of lifetime appointments?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Lifetime appointments are not right. None of us have it. I mean, that's ridiculous, lifetime appointments. I mean, to the point where they kind of lose sight of where they're at. And I think the American people should somehow elect their Supreme Court justices and have their only 20 years is the max that they can be in.
All right. Thank you very much, Donald. That's an interesting concept right there. I mean, again, the concept of lifetime appointments is sort of a different animal altogether. Peter, I don't know what you think about that, but, I think asking the people to elect Supreme Court justices
Let's just go in and rewrite everything.
I think we're on a slippery slope there. But I think he did bring up an interesting point, and this is something that we talked about a lot when the original filibuster reform stuff that Harry Reid had looked at, and it was a gentleman's agreement, basically, of, no, you have our word, we won't do that.
Right. Yeah.
And it didn't stick. It didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, I think all of this is just emblematic of what's happening on the Hill now, where they can't even get through innocuous legislation.
Right.
They couldn't pass a farm bill. They could, in the House, they couldn't do that. In the Senate, there was an energy bill that was very non-controversial, and they couldn't get it through.
Right.
I mean, it's just so difficult to get anything done, and it's frustrating for people on both sides of the aisle who are used to going about it a different way. But you can still make the argument that those people who are decrying what's happening are still voting along with their caucus and blocking nominees.
866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Talking about these new filibuster rules here on Capitol Hill. I'm Clinton Yates from the Washington Post. Elahe Izadi is here with me on the Bill Press Show. It is Monday. It's a good day. So, again, like I said, always call your family on Thanksgiving. It's one of those deals.
The whole Thanksgiving week I like because, we're working, but
it's a great week.
Come on.
It's a great week. Remember back when you were in school? You know what I mean? Thanksgiving week lead up was fun. Nobody's assigning any major homework.
No homework.
That week.
No.
Teachers don't want to deal with it. Nobody else wants to deal with it.
The homework I've got with my kids is they have to make a centerpiece for Thanksgiving. What kind of homework is that?
That is a great idea.
That's homework that benefits you. That's what that is.
What are they going with? Have they thrown any ideas out there yet?
No. I'm letting them go with it.
You're just going to let them freestyle?
Yeah.
That could end up in a complete disaster.
It could be. They're pretty creative. I mean, they do the whole origami thing, so I'm expecting big things.
Wow.
I mean, I locked them in their room for 6 hours over the weekend and said, don't you leave until I get a perfect centerpiece.
Are you the kind of family that goes with nameplates at each place at the table?
Oh, wow.
No, it's very low-key.
Really?
We're very, very low-key. This is the first Thanksgiving we've had without visiting other family.
Oh, okay.
We're just going solo this year.
You're going nuclear family, one family?
Yeah,
Wow.
That's it.
It's nuclear all around today.
Wow.
we went with the nuclear option. We're also microwaving our bird just to keep with the theme of nuking.
As long as you're not frying it and potentially blowing up your neighborhood.
Ask, are you going to fry?
That's the second nuclear option
you
see all the time. Anyway, all right, I'm Clinton Yates. Elahe Izadi is here with me, filling in for Bill Press on the Bill Press Show. Again, if you want to give us a call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. We will be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Clinton Yates of the Washington Post, filling in for Bill Press. With me is Elahe Izadi of National Journal.
Hi.
Hey. On the line, we have one Joe Cirincione of Ploughshares Fund, and we're going to talk to him about what is going on with the situation in Geneva. Hello, Joe. How are you?
Good morning, Clinton. Just great, thank you.
It's good to talk with you. So, let's break this down into simple layman's terms, because I am one of those people. I'd like to think that I understand things on a certain level, but again, this is a pretty complicated situation on, from a diplomacy standpoint as well as a national security standpoint. Just lay out for me on a basic level what went down in Geneva over the weekend.
Basically, the deal that was crafted by Secretary John Kerry and the other members of the UN Security Council, plus Germany, freezes Iran's nuclear program. It stops it in its tracks and starts to roll back certain parts of it. In exchange, Iran gets some relatively minor relief from the crippling sanctions that have been imposed on Iran for the last several years. But this is only the first phase of a deal. It's just designed to make sure that while they negotiate the final agreement, Iran isn't allowed to advance on its program. So no more, talk while you keep building centrifuges. Almost everything comes to a stop in Iran while they work out a final deal that will dismantle large parts of the program and ensure that Iran could never build a bomb.
Yeah, I have a question, Joe, actually. I mean, part of the deal is that Iran is no longer allowed to, at least for 6 months, that they halt enrichment above 5%, because there's this whole question of whether they have the right to enrich nuclear power or just to enrich nuclear power. So I guess that's one of the points of criticism, right? That it still allows for up until that point. I mean, how significant is that 5%?
It's huge, Elahe, and here's why. The whole issue with Iran is that they're building these centrifuges that can take natural uranium and enrich it a little bit, make sure there's more of the isotope U-235 in it, the one that will split when you hit it with a neutron, so that you can make fuel for a reactor. And if you enrich uranium up to 5% of 235, that's your fuel. You could stop the process right there, turn that gas into fuel rods, power your reactors, everybody's fine. But the same centrifuges, the very same facilities, could keep going and enrich it all the way up to 90%, and that's bomb grade. So the question is, do you trust Iran? Do you think they're just making fuel, or is this really secretly all about making a bomb? What this deal is designed to do is get away from the trust issue, not believe what they say, but make sure that the facilities that remain there, however large, are only making low-grade uranium. How big a deal is this? This is what Netanyahu was talking about a year ago when he went to the podium of the UN, and everybody's seen the photo with that cartoon image, right, of him with the bomb.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, he drew a red line at the top of that bomb, and he said Iran was going to cross this. They were enriching uranium to such a purity level that if they kept going, they would soon have enough to quickly convert into the core of a bomb. They had to be stopped, he said. Well, this deal stops them. It drains that uranium from the bomb. They are now, because of this deal, will be much further away from the Israeli red line than they would have been if they had kept going, if there had been no deal at all.
I must admit, in reading your tone, Joe, it sounds as if you think that this is a pretty positive development, considering a lot of people, sort of Republicans have come out, and even Democrats have come out.
Really? What a surprise!
Well, also Democrats.
But they've been waffling.
It's not just Republicans.
Right. A lot of people have been waffling on the deal. In terms of giving this a letter grade, in terms of where where the advancements are in this process. What would you give it?
Well, I'd give this an A+.
Wow.
You cannot underestimate how big a deal this is.
Yeah.
And it really operates on several levels. Number one, it directly addresses what Netanyahu himself said was the most urgent threat. It walks Iran back from the bomb. They are further away now because of the deal than they would be. By the way, what's the alternative to this deal? People, all this nitpicking about, we should have this and it should have that. It shouldn't be interim. It should be all at once. The alternative to this deal is war. If you do not stop them, if you let them go, Israel at some point will strike and plunge us into a fourth Middle East war. So let's be clear about when people criticize the deal, what's their alternative plan. But the deal stops Iran right away. Number two, it opens the way for a final solution. There's going to be 6 more months of hard bargaining, but it's only 6 months. It's time limited. So we're not going to be dawdling around. We're not going to be allowing the regime to exist while we talk. No. 6 months, make a final deal, resolve it. But there's a bigger play here that's going on, and you're starting to see some commentators talk about it, which is the change in the relationship between the United States and Iran.
Yeah.
We haven't talked to these people in 34 years. Mm-hmm. We've talked more to them in the last 2 months than we have in those 3-4 decades.
Yeah, President Rouhani retweeted the United States Department tweet announcing the deal. I mean,
that's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. That's how we found out.
Yeah.
I was in Halifax at a security conference, and we're seeing, we got reporters, and we're following everybody. And it was when Zarif, the foreign minister, said, we have reached an agreement. Bang, everybody knew. That's how we knew. And that's part of their direct communications that they're opening with the public. I know Zarif. I've met Zarif. This guy's the real deal. The Iranian leadership knows that they have to make a change, that they have to get the Iranian economy going again. And the only way they can do that is to get rid of the sanctions, and the only way they can do that is to make a deal on the nuclear program. And beyond that, there's a sense, both in the United States and Iran, that we need to change the relationship. The way Nixon changed the relationship with China. We have mutual interest in the region that go far beyond the nuclear program, stabilizing Iraq, stabilizing Afghanistan. Both of us oppose al-Qaeda. Both have an interest in stabilizing Syria. Now, they have different agendas there, but there's a lot of overlap. The nuclear deal is just the beginning of a new arrangement, as President Rouhani, the president of Iran, said. Yeah. We have to manage our differences, not overcome them, manage them. And you're already seeing this. The same 2 days that they were negotiating the nuclear deal, there was a secret meeting on Syria held in Geneva as well, with representatives from the U.S., Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia, and other states, talking about how to have a ceasefire, how to start getting humanitarian assistance into that land. So that's the bigger game in play. That's why I'm so excited by this.
Yeah. Joe, I have a question. I mean, going to the point about having this different relationship with Iran, I've been seeing reports of people within Iran talking about how they're hopeful about this because they're hoping that with the lines of communication now open, that perhaps America can have a greater influence internally when I'm talking about human rights violations and those sorts of things. That's one tack of hope. And I've also seen and heard criticism from hawks in the United States and potentially elsewhere that this deal is just going to further bolster the Iranian regime and allow their practices. Yeah. So I guess the point is, like, there is an internal situation going on in that country, just as there are political considerations internally here. So how is it playing there?
Right. So then touching a little bit on your previous question, look, there's no question the president's opponents use everything he does to attack him. Everything.
Which country are we talking about?
The United States.
Okay.
The President of the United States. Thank you very much. The president's here. So it's no wonder you're seeing, so many people criticizing this, and they try to fit it into their meme that Obama's weak and dangerous, doesn't know what he's doing. So it's a little disturbing to see how much they sacrifice the national security of the United States for their political agenda. There's also Democrats, as you say, who are very close to AIPAC, who are also criticizing this deal, like Robert Menendez, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, or Charles Schumer. But what you're seeing is most American senior national security officials in and out of office backing the deal. Zbigniew Brzezinski, Brent Scowcroft, Republican and Democrat, writing a joint letter to Congress saying, give peace a chance. 13 former diplomats to Israel and the region writing letters to Congress saying, no, this is a good deal, give it a chance. The national security establishment is in favor of this deal, but cautiously. And then back to Iran, look at what the human rights people are saying. The people who have the most to gain from a change in the administration, who care about human rights, who want this to be not just about nuclear, but about more freedom for the Iranian people, solidly in favor of this deal. All the human rights people see this as a sort of a continuum of improving relations with the United States that will lead to the ability of the Iranian regime to relax some of the restrictions they've imposed on their people for 3 decades.
Joe, we got to go. Appreciate it, man. That was educational for me, which is what I'm here for.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
That's Joe Cirincione of the Ploughshares Fund. He's the president. Hey, want to say one quick thing about this. The bottom line is this deal means that I think Americans can say that Iran is no longer part of the axis of evil, which is a good thing when it comes to, diplomacy. I'm Clinton Yates. I'm here with Elahe Izadi. This is The Bill Press Show. We'll be right back.
This is The Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the Bill Press Show. My name is Clinton Yates. I'm here with Elahe Izadi. We are talking about Iran and what is going on with the situation in Geneva. But we just got through talking about sort of what this means in terms of the sort of internal politics of what is nuclear proliferation. But there's other things about this discussion that are worth having. First of all, what's going on with this potential reaction in Congress, which I'll ask you about later. But again, I think people need to understand what's happening here. Any communication at all that involves U.S. officials and Iranian officials is a step in the right direction. Let's not forget about what happened when this was close to happening. And I would like to point towards Daphne Linzer of MSNBC's piece, which is entitled On Iran, 10 Wasted Years, One Big Day, which addresses how we got to this point overall. And the situation with Bush saying that Iran was part of the axis of evil, which drastically changed, anything that had happened up until that point. Ahmadinejad gets elected after that, and everything falls down from there. What do you think about this in terms of simply, the fist unclenching and being a hand between these two nations and how they interact?
I mean, this is just the fact that they're talking to each other in of itself is huge and major. Wasn't it in September, I think, when Obama and the president of Iran talked to each other over the phone and they tweeted about it?
Right.
I mean, that is just a major, major development because these are two countries that have not had any official communications for about 30 years plus.
Which is bananas. I mean, if you think about that in the modern world, 30 years is a long time.
And it's crazy because, there are no embassies, right? Obviously. If you want to go to Iran, you have to go through another country and vice versa. There are no direct flights. But what is interesting, it isn't like a totally closed society like, say, North Korea, where people in Iran, they have satellites where they are getting Western television, the internet, even though it's filtered, people have ways of getting around it. So even though at the top level, there has been zero communication, the people themselves, they have been communicating with each other directly and also just culturally. So there has been that exchange. But yeah, just the fact that they're even talking to each other is just incredible.
It's amazing. And, when Obama first took office, one of the things that he said was that he is going to try to engage with, sort of previously unengaged nations and this sort of thing. And so, if you think about this from a campaign promise standpoint, I think it's fair to say that this is one that he's at least done pretty well at not cashing in on, but following through with. And I don't know. To me, if you agree with that being the right strategy or not is a different story about whether or not you think he's achieved it. And I think on a very basic level, he's gotten a lot out of that so far.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with what's going on over there too, right? Because he had extended that out and put that energy out there and those overtures out there, but the regime that was in place there was not amenable to that. And I think the recent election in Iran signals what the people there want. Now, the president there, he has to deal with his own internal politics, and there's been some reporting about how he has a limited time frame in which to deliver something because there are people there who don't want this kind of engagement to be taking place either. Just like you don't. I don't want to compare the two, but they have their own internal politics to deal with. Yeah.
So let's just quickly to sort of somewhat wrap this up. How do you think this plays on the Hill? How do you think this plays with Congress? There's, like we said, Democrats have come out sort of waffly on it. Other people have said this is a flat out bad idea. But, where do you think this happens? What happens in the next 6 months?
Well, there's been talk on the Hill about whether Congress can kind of play this bad cop role, because they're still talking about passing a sanctions bill, new sanctions, and this deal kind of rolls back or puts on pause some of the sanctions that have been in place against Iran. Not all of them, about $67 billion worth of sanctions right now would be rolled back with part of this deal or put on pause. So I think it'll be interesting to see what people on the Hill do with this. It's worth noting that Harry Reid, I have not seen anything come out of his office, the Senate leader, about what he thinks about this deal and whether they're going to go through with another Iran sanctions bill. And the defense bill has been put on hold until they get back. So they get back the 9th of December, and that's really the big question is, like, what are they going to do with this deal?
All right. Geneva, tweets, retweets, Iran, U.S., Clinton, Elahe, Bill Press Show. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
In the early 20th century, the war to end all wars didn't end war at all. It stoked the fires of change. A traumatized world was ripe for change. The world was ready for modernism. Modernists wanted to forget history, or at least reinterpret it. More than just a style, modernism applied to virtually all forms of creative expression. Innovative artists like Picasso, Escher, Dali, they all started looking at their world differently. Other artists tried painting light itself. These were the Impressionists. Surrealists went a bit further. We had entered the age of the isms. Cubism, symbolism, futurism, constructivism. All these new modern ways of looking at the world blew people away. When it came to architecture, modernists were intrigued by emerging technology. Concrete, glass and steel featured heavily in their buildings. Modernists believed that they could design a better society. Ornamental indulgence was considered a frivolous waste of effort. They thought function should always dictate form, and that mankind's intelligence, creativity and capability for radical thinking should be celebrated. Take the Russian inventor Georgy Krutikov. He suggested an idea for a city held aloft by electrical currents. This at a time when there was barely enough wattage to keep the lights on. Not everything they designed was a resounding success. But you could argue modernism was the single most influential movement of the 20th century. From house music to housewares, tables and chairs to graphic design, all have been created by the aesthetics and ideas of modernism.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
How you doing today, folks? I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill Press here on the Bill Press Show. It's Monday, November 25th. It's Thanksgiving week, which is the biggest travel week of the year. A lot of people moving around town, going places, coming places. I think just from DC, the DC area alone, 1 million people are going to be leaving town, which is a lot of people. One of those people is one Barack Obama, he's the president. Got this nice little sheet here that tells me what he's going to be doing from the office of the press secretary. Let's see. Today, he is moving from, as in his entire unit will be going from Seattle to San Francisco. He's going to be delivering remarks on immigration reform at the Betty Ann Ong Chinese Recreation Center at about 11:35 a.m. That is Pacific Standard Time. Then later that afternoon at the San Francisco Jazz Center. Sounds like a great little joint. Yeah. He's going to be delivering remarks at a DNC event. From there, he is going to another DNC event at a private residence in San Francisco, California. Then he's leaving San Francisco. Man, this guy's moving around a lot, man. You
He's
know how
all over the place
Thanksgiving
today.
is enough of a bummer when you got to go from one place to another because every single buddy else is there. Not really a big problem for the president.
Yeah, exactly.
By the by. But so he is going from San Francisco to Los Angeles. And in L.A., he's got a slightly busier schedule. This evening, he's going to be delivering remarks at a DCCC/DSCC joint event. That is going to be happening in where? Beverly Hills, California, the lovely estates of Beverly Hills.
Go where
California.
the money is.
He's also going to be answering questions for the press at this same private residence, apparently in Beverly Hills, California, at about 8 p.m. Pacific time. No word on whether or not Axel Foley plans to be showing, because that would be an interesting way to fall into the presidency. But
one of the many perks, by the way, of being president, dude, the weather here, it's hateful.
It is miserable.
Yeah, so you know
what?
what?
It was so cold yesterday.
Oh, it was
I refused to go anywhere. I was like, once I got back in the house one time, I was like, shut it down.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going anywhere.
We're not leaving again.
It's freezing outside.
Let's go to California.
Right. Well, that's
when you're
the thing.
president, you can do that.
You can just change planes and be like, guess what? I'm out of here, because that makes my
Change
life
of plans.
that much easier. But wouldn't be Thanksgiving without some level of discomfort. So that's the president's press schedule for today. He's in San Francisco and Los Angeles, specifically Beverly Hills, and he starts off in Seattle, Washington. So we'll be back here soon. I'm Clinton Yates of the Washington Post. Elahe Izadi is here with me as well. She's of the National Journal and also a stand-up comic. When we get back, we got a lot more stuff to talk about, so don't go anywhere, because that would mean less of me, and that is not a smart decision. I'm Clinton Yates. This is the Bill Press Show. Talk to you soon.
This is the Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to The Bill Press Show. My name is Clinton Yates of The Washington Post. I'm here with Elahe Izadi of the National Journal. Let's get right into it. We got my man, Christopher Cillizza, The Fix, better known as from The Washington Post as well, also a owner of many plaid shirts. How are you this morning, Christopher?
I do own many plaid shirts.
I heard that somewhere.
Yeah, no, that is true. It's hard to argue. I just like them.
So, let me ask you first of all, the nuclear option situation. How does this play on the Hill in terms of the politics for the next upcoming election cycle, in your opinion?
Okay, so let me take the second question first. It doesn't play in the next election cycle because no one outside of Washington really knows what the nuclear option is. The Pew Research Center did a poll in 2010. They asked people, how many votes does it take to break the filibuster? Basically, 1 in 4 people got the right answer. So I always...
Hey, it's not bad.
I actually thought that was a little high.
Yeah, exactly.
To be honest, I was a little bit surprised. I mean, I think as a political reporter and as people who are sort of in D.C., you always have to remember that things that seem like a huge deal here are not necessarily, sometimes they are, but they're not necessarily a huge deal everywhere else. And I think this is one of those instances. No one is going to run and win or lose on the nuclear option. That said, to your first question, Clinton, it is a big deal as it relates to legislation and as it relates to sort of how the Senate works. I wrote a big thing in the Post today about how, it really does strengthen this president and future president's hands when it comes to picking cabinet positions, when it comes to picking judicial nominees, when it comes to picking other positions that are confirmed by the Senate. One example, President Obama quite clearly wanted to pick Susan Rice to be Secretary of State, but because she was tied to the whole Benghazi incident, she was the one who went on the Sunday shows after it happened. There was no way that she was going to get the 5 Republicans they would need. Democrats have 55 Senate seats. They needed 60 to get her to a vote. They were never going to get that. And so he decided to go with the more practical option, which was John Kerry, who had been in, who was a member of the Senate, who got confirmed easily. You could see if this was the law of the land a year ago, that maybe Barack Obama says, hey, look, I can lose 5 Senate Democrats and still get Susan Rice confirmed. It's just it's a different world in D.C., but we should not make the mistake to think that the average person out there is following very closely parliamentary procedural changes in the Senate, because they're not.
Do you think this was a smart move for the Democrats?
I tend to think that it probably will come back to bite them more than they will benefit from it. So the truth of the matter is the reason no one has ever done this in the past is because they're afraid that when they go into the minority, the other side will sort of take advantage of them. Does it allow President Obama to get some people who were blocked through? Yes, it does. But, I'm not sure the gain, because remember, Republicans still control the House. I'm not sure the gain that they make by doing some of this stuff is sort of offset by the danger of if they lose the Senate, and that's a very real possibility. If they lose the Senate next November, now all of a sudden the changes they made to benefit them are going to be hurting them. Shifting gears a little bit, what were your first thoughts politically on Capitol Hill when you heard about what happened in Geneva this weekend? I was interested to see what the reaction would be, because basically President Obama has, for the last couple of weeks, Clinton, been asking Democrats and Republicans on the Hill to sort of hold off doing anything until these talks either failed or succeeded. The Hill has been much more they've been more willing and want to do sort of more aggressive policy toward Iran, that they want to be tougher on Iran, that they want deeper sanctions. They are less sort of willing to negotiate with Iran than the president and the administration has been. So President Obama held them off, and they got this deal. Now, it's a temporary deal, but it's still a deal. I was interested but not terribly surprised to see most Republicans and even some Democrats were critical of the deal, essentially saying, hey, look, we're still allowing Iran to do things we don't want them to do, and we're now giving them billions of dollars we're lessening our sanctions. So, look, the president doesn't need, this is the important thing, the president doesn't need Capitol Hill to make this happen. He can, by executive orders, start giving them money. And so I guess foreign policy is a strange one in that the lines of who's where are a little bit harder to judge. But I'm not terribly surprised that this wasn't received all that well on Capitol Hill. And it was a little bit of a bipartisan reaction, too. So one of your posts from over the weekend was one about these two pictures that the White House released. Yeah. And sort of the image that they were trying to put forward. Two-part question. Sure. Number one, what do you think is even being symbolized here in terms of, the sort of blocking of the photos and all that? I mean, you said there's a reason why they do that. That's the first question. Number two, how do you feel about the running shoes, khakis, and fleece look? Because that's an interesting weekend go-to. And what does that mean about Obama's presidency? Right. Again, let me get to the important question, the second fashion question first. I don't wear running shoes and khakis. It's just not a thing. I'm with you on that. It's very dad. It's way a total dad outfit. The prep school that I went to, I still remember this, even though I'm 37. I still remember this. The prep school that I went to, I transferred into it from a public school, and I went there, and on the first day, everyone had gray New Balances and khakis on, and I did not. I was so confused because I went to a prep school where you wore like, dress shoes and there was a school uniform. So it was the first time I was ever introduced to the sneakers and khakis look. But that said, that's a total diversion. So. Here's the thing. I wrote about a year ago, Clinton. I wrote a piece that said that Pete Souza was the administration's secret weapon. In that Pete Souza is the White House photographer. This White House, more so than any White House prior, George W. Bush, anybody else included, has limited the access of photographers to the president. So essentially, the person who documents what the president does day in and day out is on the president's payroll. And people say, well, who cares? He's just taking pictures. I understand that, but there's a difference between journalism that is done by independent news sources and journalism, or not even journalism, but documentation that is done by someone who works for the president. So we've seen some of the most iconic pictures of this administration are Pete Souza, the picture of everyone in the Situation Room during the operation to capture Osama bin Laden. And these pictures, look, aside from the obvious fashion faux pas that I think was committed, I mean, the real message here is, this president is sort of serious. Sorry, my son is sitting in my lap. I knew this would come up. Well, what does he have to say about this? This would come up. He's he's not all that interested.
Okay.
This president is serious. This president is sort of engaged in serious conversations. He's talking to the right people. His chief of staff, Dennis McDonough, is there. Ben Rhodes, one of his national security advisors, is there. Tony Blinken. So I just think, I'm not saying that if a photographer from the Washington Post was given access to the president on Saturday, that the photos would be all that different than the photos that the White House released. Somebody, I put that column out, Clinton, and somebody tweeted, "What do you think he'd be doing? Twerking?" And I'm like, no, I don't think he was doing that. But I do think you have to acknowledge that there's a difference between images that are chosen by someone who works for the President of the United States and images that are chosen by someone who works for an independent news agency.
Yeah.
I would say that for a Republican or a Democrat. I just think it is something that this White House has really pushed the boundaries on. In fact, last week there was a letter sent by most of the major news organizations, including the Washington Post, saying, "Look, we need more access. Photographers need more access." So I mean, I think it's a problem, and I would say that if it was a Republican or a Democrat in the White House.
Did you watch any soccer this weekend?
I did. I watched a lot of soccer this weekend, including my Tottenham Hotspurs give up a goal 13 seconds into the game, which I didn't even think was possible, and then lose 6-0. It was really depressing.
Right, dude, the Merseyside derby was the match, though, by the way.
Liverpool and Everton was amazing.
Yeah.
An amazing match, and I think that Romelu Lukaku is just an absolute. He is going to be so dominant.
And the best part about that game, look, I know that we're sort of way off
Clinton,
into.
I will tell you this.
What? Go ahead.
You are rapidly bleeding listeners.
No.
I'm about to walk out.
I just want people to know that Salissa is a huge soccer fan, and when we walk the halls of the Washington Post and I see him, pretty much 90% of the conversation we have is about Premier League and World Cup soccer. So
that is
100%
true.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on. You got dad duties. I can hear that in the background.
Bye, Charlie.
Bye.
Oh, perfect.
All right. That's Chris Salissa.
Take care.
Thanks.
You too. The Fix of the Washington Post, who I have the privilege of calling my friend. So that was fun. All right. We'll be right back. I'm Clinton Yates. Elahe Izadi is here as well. It's the Bill Press Show. It's November 25th. See you soon.
This is the Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back, kiddos. My name is Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist at the Washington Post. I'm here with Elahe Izadi, who is a correspondent in that journal.
Hello.
Also happens to be a stand-up comedian.
Yes.
You got some gigs coming up soon?
Yeah, I will be at State Theater in Virginia on Saturday evening. Local comedy showcase, $5. I think it's at 8 o'clock. Y'all should come out.
All right. Well, speaking of comedy and fun things, the American Music Awards were last night, held in Los Angeles. And if you live in the world in 2013, you know that the Twitter box is a necessity for every single award show. It's just its own comedic entertainment. You don't even have to watch the shows. You can just read Twitter and you'll find all the pictures and all the stuff that happened. There were a couple interesting points. First of all, Pitbull was the host, which was an interesting sort of twist. We'll have some sound on that later. But also, let's see. There were a couple of highlights, in my opinion. First of all, Ariana Grande, if you don't know who she is.
I don't know who she is.
I don't know who she is.
She sang a song called Tattooed Heart, and she had a sort of an a cappella background group of 5 guys. And, I mean, this is just a nice, lovely song. And I had no idea who this woman was either, but, you know, check her out. It was a very good performance. Katy Perry opened the show with sort of a bizarre geisha getup that was a little bit, I'm not going to say culturally insensitive, but it didn't seem to fit right for me. It was a little bit oddball. 2 Chainz had a funny shirt on. It made him. Somebody said on Twitter that he looked like
2 Chainz had a funny shirt on.
Yeah,
I'm sold.
You don't say.
Somebody said he was wearing a shirt that was the equivalent of the hardest level on Tetris, which was funny.
It's very descriptive.
One performance that I wanted to talk about was One Direction. Now, they're a boy band. And they have hit that point where they are no longer boys. All right, I think they're all.
Are they boys to men now?
They're
are
like
they men?
19.
Well, see, they're at the age where like they take them out back and shoot them now.
Right.
Like they're done.
But I must say, I never thought that this band would go this long. You know, in terms of their status. I mean, it's not easy for boy bands to make that transition to like semi-man bands, and they've done it pretty well.
Bands.
But here's the thing:
man bands.
If you're on Twitter and you're watching a mainstream level award show, don't complain about boy bands being present. That's what the whole point of the operation is. Mm-hmm. That's how mainstream commercial music works. Mm-hmm. So these idiots out there that are like, oh my God, it's 2013. Why are boy bands still a thing? Well, you're the one watching the shows that they're putting them on and displaying their talents on. So these guys that claim that they're too real for the music industry, for a boy band, but they're still by the same breath watching the AMAs. Get out of here with that.
Boy bands have done good work. There's been some good work out of boy bands.
I'm not going to go that far. But here's what I will say. This is where I think you're right, Clinton, is that like if you look at the Grammys, which is it's a reward to artistic talent who put out the best product, whereas the AMAs, it's all about like it's a popularity contest. You get to vote. The American people get to vote on that.
How do you vote for it? Is it online?
I don't know. I'm in my mid-30s.
Yeah, me neither. I'm just trying to get the deets.
Exactly. You know, and
it's the People's Award.
Exactly. It's pretty low rent. It falls below the MTV Awards. As far as I'm concerned, it falls below the Billboard Awards, even though it's a fun event. But the person who won Artist of the Year was T Swizzle. Your thoughts on Taylor Swift?
T Swizzle. Taylor Swift. Well, she's just the voice of a generation, apparently.
Yeah. She is.
Yeah. Didn't she say something about, do we have the audio?
She did. We have that. Taylor Swift won Artist of the Year, and here's what she had to say.
This validates that if you voted for this, that we are heartbroken the same way, and we fall in love the same way, and we're happy the same way.
bizarre levels of emotion there.
Yeah.
For an award that, again, I didn't think was that big of a deal.
Well,
I mean, she seemed to be,
I
I didn't watch this live, but she's hyperventilating. I don't know if she, sprinted to the podium or just what, but she seemed very emotional about winning Artist of the Year, which, you can say is genuine or not, but Taylor Swift is always an interesting character. I think she gets hated on a bit too much, considering the fact that I think she's at least trying to be honest about it. But again, that was a little bit weird.
But I also appreciate watching artists evolve and change in their career. And I don't know that she's moved on past I have a really hard time keeping boyfriends and they break my, that's.
Also, why are you
like her
ever
whole
dating Taylor Swift? You know you're going to be in a record or your entire relationship will be a record someday.
Also, we talked about the host Pitbull earlier. He had something to say about my favorite performer in mainstream music right now.
You know what I love about Miley's performance and what everybody talking with twerking, and God bless her, is that being a Miami boy coming from the booty shaking era. Thank you, Mama, for bringing back booty shaking. Appreciate it.
What a great line. Thank you, Mama, for bringing back booty shaking. When did booty shaking ever go away?
Yeah, that's my question.
I mean, you go to any bar in America, and you're probably going to find somebody, shaking their booty in one form or another.
And it's usually me.
Right.
He's everywhere.
No,
everywhere.
But, again, Miley Cyrus to me is everything that this generation is. You talk about Taylor Swift being a generation's entertainer. I think Miley Cyrus.
I can't even.
To me, there's she's got a lot going on.
There's a lot happening there.
I mean, if you're going to tell me that that she's one of the worst people in America for kids to deal with, no, you're wrong. All right. I mean, I don't know.
I think it's a valid point. I think you bring up a good point.
Yeah.
I think that she represents a lot of this generation, but I also am a little tired of the what do I have to do now to freak everybody out from what I did last time.
That's true. That does get a little tired.
And I hate to admit this. Wrecking Ball is a very, very good song.
Oh, great!
It's a very catchy, good song.
Great song. Let's not kid ourselves here. That album is pretty strong. I mean,
you've sat and listened to this album, Clint?
Yes, I'm not one of these people that considers myself too good for pop music. Not remotely.
I'm not. No judgment. No judges. No judges here.
There's a little bit of judging.
There's a little bit of judging.
There's a little bit of judgment there. No, I'm not one of these people.
I'm just surprised
that considers myself too good for pop music. And I think as far as that goes, not only is Miley Cyrus moving the needle from an impact standpoint, but the music doesn't suck. I mean, and that's all you can really ask for.
Yeah.
I don't know. You didn't get a chance to watch?
No, I went to bed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mama.
No,
you're welcome. Because if I had not gone to bed, I would not be here today.
That is a great drop, by the way. But yeah, the other thing that happened at the AMAs that was very interesting is that a lot of the presenters skewed a little old in some people's minds. At one point, Mark Antony came out and he was wearing like jeans and a flannel.
Wait, was he wearing Obama mom jeans?
No, but he was
New Balances and khakis.
Extremely
Could you
casually.
imagine?
And I was like, is this guy going to Sonic like after the show? Like, why are
the
you
AMAs.
not? Yeah, he literally looked like he walked in off the street and it didn't even matter to him. It was very interesting. But anyway, so that was that. It was a fun night of entertainment on the television if you weren't watching football, which was also a great game. But I'm Clinton Yates. I'm here with Elahe Izadi. This is the Bill Press Show. Excuse me. It's Monday, November 25th, and we'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show. Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
How we doing today, folks? It's Monday, November 25th. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill Press here on the Bill Press Show. I'm here with Elahe Izadi of National Journal. How are you?
Good. How are you?
All is well. Today, as I said, is November 25th, which is the 50th anniversary of when JFK was laid to rest after he was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. I bring up Dallas, Texas because that is the location where a lot of controversy has gone down with people that many people will call conspiracy theorists, but do not like to go by that name and prefer the term assassination theorists. Now, this is a very sort of weird situation because for years, Dallas has done everything they could to associate themselves with the assassination whilst not painting a negative light on themselves as a city, if that makes sense. You think that's a fair way to describe it?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And it's a tricky one for them because, when you think about the politics internally of what goes on in Texas and so forth, they never wanted to be painted as some hyper right wing sort of area, whatever you may think or don't know about Dallas, this was a problem after the assassination, something they had to deal with. And there are a lot of people that think because of the way that the 50th anniversary was handled, not that they've been trying to cover up what happened, but certainly have not helped out any of the people that have made it their lives work to try to figure out what really did. And so you've got this strange, how do you put this dynamic? Yeah, the strange dynamic between the people that have kept this story alive in that town, in the city, who all of a sudden this year kind of tried to erase all of the assassination theorists from their overall celebration. Now, Marin Cogan, your colleague, wrote a story about this. Mm-hmm. What did you think? Did you watch any of the Dallas stuff?
A little bit, yeah.
I watched a little bit, and I must say it was a little. It seemed very bland. Mm-hmm. In a way that I'm not sure that I understood, because, again, this was a very violent situation that ripped the country apart in a way that nothing ever has before and arguably nothing has since. And to have such a sterile sort of event did not seem tone appropriate to me. Maybe that was just me. What did you think?
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I think that this is a topic that I didn't think that I would be as into and as involved in, but I felt so pulled into it.
Yeah,
and part of it was the conspiracy stuff. Part of it was just the bizarre nature of how it all played out in the media at the time that I wanted to relive it, and I was way involved.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch a lot of the events on Friday, but in the media reports, there was some talk about how there were some skirmishes or incidences happening on the periphery. I think some of these assassination researchers and folks like that, as they like to be called, wanted to be part of it. And yeah, so I guess there might have been more going on there that we just maybe didn't see through the broadcast. Right.
The basic outline of the story is this, that every year, a lot of these assassination researchers show up on either the grassy knoll or at Dealey Plaza as a way to sort of commemorate themselves to, indicate that they think that there was more there. A lot of people don't believe the Warren Commission report, quite frankly, and think that it's not really plausible that one guy could have pulled that off. And, again, whether or not you want to get into the merits of that, it's a little weird to think that for whatever reason, there'd be an additional sort of government push out on top of what people already believe was a conspiracy to kill a president.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Fuel to the fire,
and so,
certainly.
there's a very, I think something that a lot of people don't appreciate about what Dallas has sort of done in terms of their role in this. And again, Marin Cogan wrote this piece, and there are parts of this that I just find absolutely fascinating on many levels because, look, if you genuinely believe that what was told to the American public was a lie about how the 35th president of the United States was killed, I can't imagine that it's very easy to let that go. I mean, I just don't. It's not something that you just sort of a fly-by-night theorist spends a lot of time making their life's work of. And if you really study not just what they have to say, but how these people interact with each other, again, it's amazing to think that people are going to conferences around the country
they're in it.
to get together to discuss this. I mean, that is unreal to me. I don't know if that strikes you as interesting, but
I will say I entered this anniversary thinking that it was a one-shooter situation.
Right.
And I watched a lot of the coverage over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I still think it's a one-shooter situation.
Really?
I really do.
Really?
I really do. And I think there are a lot of weird coincidences and just odd aspects of this story that I can understand why people would question it. But for me, I just go, no, there's not enough there.
They say that there's polls that say that 60% of people believe that there was more than one shooter. 6 in 10 Americans. That is wild to me. That's actually, I don't know. I mean, I don't know anybody that necessarily really believes that, but
or will cop to it.
There's got to be people out of there. Yeah.
I had a basketball game yesterday, and a lot of the guys that I play with, let's just say they don't keep up with current events that well. Right. And one of the dudes was trying to convince everybody that, no, it was the driver who did it. You could see in the video that the driver turned around, and that's why the headshot comes from, it looks like it's coming from up front, because the driver did it.
Right. Well, we're joined right now by Marin Cogan of National Journal, who wrote this story. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm all right. So I was just talking about my sheer fascination with not just what the theories are, but the fact that the people who feel this way are their own little community on their own. What was it like to sort of get into that world and explore that?
It was so interesting. I asked all of them, why devote your lives to this? There are people who met their spouses on the early sort of message boards about JFK conspiracies. There are people there's one guy, David Lifton, who never married because he said he realized he'd always be more interested in the president's dead body than a wife's living one. People who,
oh my God.
No, so you can be casual about
Put him in jail.
Right.
Sorry.
People are
Guilty
not
of something.
That is creepy.
Yeah, and people who inherited this interest from their fathers or their grandfathers. I mean, it's just people get so obsessed with it. It is really fascinating to sort of study how they get into this.
And I have to ask, in your piece, you talk about how they feel like the mainstream media has kind of painted them as nut jobs. What did you have to do to kind of gain their trust for them to even talk to you about this? Or were they pretty open about it?
Well, it's interesting. They really wanted to talk. They wanted someone to hear them and not just treat them like they were crazy. But it was no doubt that they were really frustrated. They're frustrated at being called conspiracy theorists. And the problem is they all think that what they're doing is sort of the more legitimate research, and then there are the crazier conspiracy theorists. And there are sort of different gradations of people who research the case, like former Washington Post editors who research it, and then people who think that the Secret Service, shot JFK or that LBJ was people who just sort of have these wild theories. But yes, they were very, some of them were like, it's very important that you don't treat me like I'm crazy, because they're really frustrated at being sort of lumped in.
And you end up in this Shutter Island situation where the more you insist that you're not crazy, it just makes you sound a little more crazy.
Right.
Right. And it was funny because I was talking to that Washington Post editor that I mentioned before, and he was like, everyone tells me not to pursue this because I'm going to look crazy. And he's like, I'm fully aware that researching this case can make you go crazy, but I just say, I don't think I'm crazy. Look at what I've written. If it seems crazy, then tell me what's crazy.
Yeah, like judge it by its merit.
Right. So Dallas obviously plays a big role in this, in terms of the city. I'm not sure I understand what the city has to gain from being so, from blockading or, these theorists, if you will.
Yeah, it's not really so much what the city has to gain, so much as what they have to lose. Imagine if on the 50th, on Friday, CNN and everyone else was carrying a live feed and there were a bunch of sort of crazy spectacles happening. There was one year when a local gadfly sort of drove a hearse around Dealey Plaza, and at the appointed hour, some mannequins, blood-spurting mannequins, popped out. So you obviously cannot have that happening when CNN is carrying a live feed around the country, and that is understandable. But they also are just extremely sensitive because the people who organized this event were there when it happened and really feel the sort of pain and the scars of having been tarred the city of hate after the assassination.
All right, look, we're going to take a break now, but we're going to get more into this with Marin Cogan of National Journal. Again, her story is The Last Stand of the JFK Truthers. It's a fascinating look if you want to check it out about sort of what's gone on in the last week, and I guess over the past 40 years to a certain level in Dallas. It's the Bill Press Show. I'm Clinton Yates. Elahe Izadi is here with me. We'll be right back.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Thank you, Mama, for bringing back booty shaking. Appreciate it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. You're listening to the Bill Press Show. I am not Bill Press. I am Clinton Yates. I am joined by Elahe Izadi of National Journal, and we are joined by her colleague Marin Cogan, who wrote the piece The Last Stand of the JFK Truthers. It's about how they've had so much trouble dealing with Dallas press and the Dallas city authorities, which are trying to sort of get their cause out there and be a part of what was the 50th anniversary. But we want to know, what are some of the more intimate details of these theories? Because there's a lot of them out there, and I presume these people represent the most serious of all of them involved in terms of their credibility. What were some of the ones you found interesting?
Yeah, so I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I think it was something like there are 311 distinct theories and 313 distinct theories and something like 400 people who have been named and 81 assassins. So there are tons and literally hundreds of theories, and they sort of run the gamut. The more popular theories are that it was some sort of national security type plot, the CIA, or some distinct group of the CIA, some small sort of unsupervised group within the CIA. But then from there, it runs through to, let's see, there's Castro, there's the Russians, there's the mafia, there's, his own Secret Serviceman accidentally shot him.
Wow. Do you have a favorite?
Do I have a favorite?
Or like the one that surprised
the most outlandish,
you the most, or the one you're like, oh, I never thought of that.
Well, aliens is definitely the most surprising.
Yeah, I'm pulling for the alien theory.
You're pulling for the alien.
Yeah, totally.
I never considered the idea that it could be aliens, but also the idea that Jackie was involved is pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, had you heard the Jackie one before?
I'd never heard it before.
So I've never thought of
before
that.
I started looking into this, I had never, you learn a little bit about history in high school and college, but I'd never sort of delved into the realm of conspiracy theory in quite this way. So I learned a lot.
Did you get kind of like intrigued and a little like, because these people that they're talking about how you can't just kind of be casual about this. It seems like it sucks people in where you're like, oh my God, I'm starting to get sucked into.
Yeah, I totally got sucked in. I mean, we're reporters, right? We love this stuff, and it's totally the same instinct that makes you want to just bury yourself in this stuff. But the thing is, so many people have buried themselves in this material before me, and there are so many books written on the subject. You could literally spend the rest of your life reading all of them.
Was it a little overwhelming on a certain level?
It was a little overwhelming, definitely, especially trying to sort out on the internet. Everyone has documents, but some of the documents are fake. It's just you really have to put in the time and do your own independent research, and lots of people have spent a lot more time than I have. The two sort of most prominent anti-conspiracy writers are Gerald Posner, who wrote a 640-page book debunking conspiracy theories, and then Vincent Bugliosi wrote I think 1,400-page book on the conspiracy
I couldn't
theories.
turn on my TV and not see Vincent Bugliosi this weekend.
Yeah, he was
all over everything.
The circuit, yeah. All right, we're talking with Marin Cogan of National Journal. She wrote The Last Stand of the JFK Truthers, which is about the people that doubt the Warren Report and, the finding that Lee Harvey Oswald was the singular man responsible for the death of John F. Kennedy. Is, again, the story is great, and I guess one of my questions is, one of the things we do a lot as reporters get a lot of feedback. Have you gotten any sort of, do you find yourself in the middle of this world all of a sudden because you delve so far into it and people are trying to get to you to get their theories out there?
Yeah. A little bit. One of the interesting questions I dealt with was how to refer to them, because they really don't want to be thought of as conspiracy theorists. And there are also just people who are Warren Commission doubters who aren't putting forth a theory necessarily, like I mentioned before. And they want to be called researchers. So I really, because I tried to sort of strike a balance between not treating them all like they're the same and they're idiots, and acknowledging that some of them are conspiracy theorists, I just sort of used the terms interchangeably, and they were offended by that. But, I think they felt at least that I had focused on a fight that they were currently fighting, and I had focused on their sort of First Amendment complaints, which were a little bit easier to understand because of the way the city of Dallas behaved, and so I think they were happy to have sort of that fight out there.
And I mean, what's so fascinating, we've talked about this a little bit before, was so many Americans do doubt and say that the government hid it. You cited a 2009 CBS poll finding 74% of Americans believe the government hid the truth about what happened to Kennedy. So it's kind of one of these things where I feel like what other topic or space in this country where so many people believe one thing, and yet look at those who are delving into that and casting them as though they're out of mainstream
It's a very
America.
paradoxical sort of analysis of what goes on because, I mean, if most people are like, oh, yeah, obviously the government hid something, but everybody else is like, oh, you think that? You're a nut job. That's weird. Anyway, we got a break here, but we're talking here with, Marin Cogan of National Journal, which, again, I implore you to read this story because on a basic level, it's just really a good look into what happened in Dallas. The last stand of the JFK truthers. I'm Clinton Yates. Elahe Izadi is here with me as well. Peter Rose on the boards. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. This is the Bill Press Show. It is Monday, November 25th. I am Clinton Yates here with Elahe Izadi. How are you?
Hello, I'm good.
Things are going well, and so, we're going to ask everybody what their Thanksgiving plans are. Marin Cogan of National Journal is here with us. We were discussing your JFK piece earlier. What are you doing on Turkey Day?
I'm going to go home to Pittsburgh and hold my little baby nephew.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
How old is he?
4 months.
4 months.
Yeah.
Wow. Does he have a name? Can we get a shout out?
Yes, Gabriel Felipe.
Oh, that's a nice
Shout
name.
out.
You can't understand me, but hello. I love you.
Elahe, what about you?
I'm going back to my parents' house in Western Maryland. I'm going to eat lots of turkey, mashed potatoes, and Persian food because that's
Persian
how we
food.
do
Right.
on Thanksgiving.
Nice. Myself, Thanksgiving's always a bit of a tricky one. My parents aren't together, so it's like a double down kind of deal, but it's always good to see family and so forth. But favorite Thanksgiving dish? Elahe, go.
Oh, God. I don't... mashed potatoes.
You mix it all together and then you smother it with gravy.
That's the one I like too. I'm going with Marin.
About 4 hours after the meal, it's like the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
Peter, your thoughts?
Oh my God, I'm reeling from that. But
right.
You know what? 364 days out of the year, turkey is horrible. It's just the most boring thing to serve. But Thanksgiving Day, man, I'm all about the turkey.
Yeah.
I go full turkey.
I am a stuffing guy myself. I'm a big fan of stuffing. Got to go in the bird and
You
not
don't do the
stovetop.
Oh,
No,
dude,
no way.
in the bird.
In the bird. Anyway,
Okay.
we're going to wrap things up. Listen, thanks
know you were
everybody for
riding
listening
dirty,
today. Elahe and I are going to be here all week. We're going to have a lot of fun. It's Thanksgiving week, so like I said, you know what? We're goofing off in the classroom. But again, thanks everybody for listening. I'm Clinton Yates of the Washington Post. For Elahe Izadi of National Journal. For Pete, for everybody else that's here, it's the Bill Press Show. Have a great day.
This is the Bill Press Show.